Hey, and welcome back. This is Brian Stillman at CES 2020. I'm here for BeTerrific, but you knew that. You've been with us all this time. You're sticking with us. You're powering through. You're seeing all the technology. I'm having a great time bringing it to you all. I hope you're all having a good time seeing it all. We're back with Doodlematic. Doodlematic, we've been talking to them a lot this week. We were down at CES Unveil. We talked to you guys. We had you on the show yesterday, but you're back because honestly, it's a super cool project, a super cool product. But this time we're here with Alicia. You are the co-founder of the company, and
Yes.
you are an art teacher, and you're approaching it more from the art and education point of view.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here and having us back to show off more of Doodlematic. So I am an art educator. I've been teaching for 12 years. My background is from Rhode Island School of Design. I absolutely love everything that has to do with art. And the one thing about art is that it infiltrates every part of our lives. The shirts that we wear, the clothes, the shoes, everything that we pick out, every flyer information that we get, it's all art in one different way. So a lot of times people will look at a product and they'll be like, well, I'm not an artist, this isn't for me. It absolutely is for everyone. And more importantly than just kind of the visuals of it is the creative process that takes place behind it. So it's really exciting to be kind of like the meeting of the minds between my husband, the tech end of it, and me as the creative end.
So, art as an educational tool. We've talked about Doodlematic a lot, so before we get into it, I want to talk a little bit about art as an educational tool, about reaching kids through art, but also teaching STEM skills, teaching sort of very abstract ideas, game design, game development, programming through art. Tell me a little bit about that.
So first, I like to use the word STEAM instead of STEM because that's putting art back into the equation.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think that's a really important skill for us because we talk about tech and we talk about this idea of being able to innovate and move into the future. Without that creative ability and without that creative problem-solving skills, which art teaches and cultivates, we can't do any of that. So one of the biggest issues that I see in my classroom and that I commiserate with other teachers with is that kids just want the right answer. They want to be told what to do step by step. And it's a real problem that we're seeing kind of increase as we move forward. We live in a world of instant gratification. The kids want to be able to press a button, get the answer, move on with their lives.
Right.
So with Doodlematic, we can really use this as a tool to start teaching children resilience and the idea of iteration, where you can sit there, you can try something. If it doesn't work the first time, you tinker with it and you figure out how to go ahead and change it. So in that aspect, it's a real teaching tool in terms of your skills and abilities to move forward as a person, but it can also be used to teach content. So for example, I've worked with a English teacher for language arts at the high school level. She's teaching Shakespeare.
Okay.
And the kids are really struggling with it and understanding the concepts and kind of what happened in each particular chapter of the story. So instead of having her kids do a quiz on it, which she saw that they were really failing at, she did an experiment. She took Doodlematic into one of her sections, had the kids create a game on chapter 3. So everyone sat down, they had to think about, okay, what is the setting? They drew out the setting. Who are the characters that are playing in this? Who is the hazard or the enemy, the obstacle in this story? They made games for it. They played those games, they shared them with each other, everyone played, and then when she gave that quiz later to see who retained that information, the kids that made the game remembered every aspect of that story.
Before we go any deeper into that, let's explain to anyone who hasn't been following along so far, what is Doodlematic? Doodlematic is it's a cool system to create games on your phone. Explain that to us.
Yes. So Doodlematic is color-based. What it's doing is it is looking at a blank sheet of paper, for the most part, that you are drawing on. So you can do this with markers. The kit comes with that, but it also allows you to use anything that are the correct colors. So when you're drawing your hazard, you draw it in red. When you're drawing your avatar, you draw it in green. When you're drawing your goals, you draw them in blue. So as long as you were using those colors, you can go ahead and create this. So if you wanted to print out Shakespeare's face, if you use green ink, that could automatically be your avatar. So then you go ahead within the app and take a photo of that, and within 15 seconds, you're able to play that game.
Okay, so you have this tool that is literally, the interface is art.
Correct.
And then you are turning whatever you can imagine into a game.
Yes.
That is pretty cool, and I can see how that would work in the Shakespeare scenario you gave us. What I love is that it is demonstrating the value of art beyond simply aesthetics. You know, we look at funding, we look at arts funding. It's always the first thing people want to cut.
Absolutely.
But like you said earlier, art isn't everything. It's in the clothes we're wearing. You think art's unimportant? Well, then why don't you just wear a white shirt or a plain black shirt? If you like the way your car looks, if you pick that car over that car, well, that's because of art. It's not just aesthetics for aesthetics' sake. And in this case, you're using it for education. I think that's amazing. I think that's very valuable. What inspired you to go down this path, to develop this program?
So a lot of it goes back to what I was seeing in my classrooms, especially at the high school level. I have a lot of kids that come into my room and instantaneously say, I can't draw a stick figure, I'm just here because guidance told me I needed to show up. They really don't have any interest or investment in kind of the creative end of things because it's undervalued, as you just said. So the idea here is that we're able to put something in their hands that is something that they automatically gravitate to. One of my biggest kind of competitors in the classroom is the iPhones because they want to be playing games, they want to be texting each other. So now instead of constantly saying, hey, let's put that away, I'm saying, okay, let's make a game. Let's do this instead. And when I say let's doodle, it's a different word than saying let's draw. If I say let's draw, they're like, oh God, I can't do that. If I say let's doodle, they're like, oh, okay, I can handle that.
Right.
So it's kind of getting kids back to a starting point and giving them the okay to be creative again. A lot of kids that have pegged themselves as not being able to draw at this point have picked things back up. It's a real game changer in the sense that people that did not think that they could do this start to get hooked because it's really simple. But then the complexity and the drawings that they do as they continue with it just continue to grow like exponentially. So it's really, really cool to see. And it really kind of breaks down barriers. I know that there's a lot of girls that I teach that are like, oh, I'm not into games, I can't do that, I can't be a game designer. And I look at them and I say, yes, you can. Like, your ideas are no less interesting or exciting than anybody else's. So I actually have an intern right now who was one of my students that I introduced to this product kind of in a slightly different way. And now she's actually going to school for game design.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's really exciting to kind of see that dialogue shift. And she actually said to me the other day, she's like, I'm doing this because of you. And it, as a teacher, that is like the most rewarding experience ever in your life. So to be able to offer this to everyone, starting at 6, and getting girls to realize, or anyone to realize, that at that young, they can be creators. They don't have to just consume the technology.
Well, that's sort of a question I had for you. You mentioned that your partner on this is your husband, who's a software engineer.
Yes.
And one of the things that he said to me when we talked was how this is inspiring kids to continue with sort of exploring game design and tech and stuff. I'm curious, do you find that kids on the flip side are using this and saying, I see that art can do a thing, it can create a thing. What else can I do with art? I want to explore being an artist and using these art skills in other directions, wherever it might be, whether it's design, whether it's fashion, whether it's just, I want to be a painter, whatever. Is it inspiring that spark of creativity in people?
It is, because it's giving kind of like that acceptance and that kind of, it's flipping the dialogue in people's heads that art isn't kind of the cool thing to do, because some kids do experience that, and they're saying, hey, this is a real thing that I can gravitate towards. So it may start here, it's kind of the seed, and then you do start to see it grow. And another thing that we're seeing is that it really does change people's perception of the world. Like, I've had students that have been walking around with their camera with Doodlematic, and they'll be like, oh, that thing's green, that thing's blue, and they'll actually take it and set it up on a white wall because they're curious to see whether or not it's going to work, and they'll take a picture and they'll be like, oh my gosh, my coffee cup is dancing, you know? So it really does change kind of your perception, and just being more open-minded about what's around you is automatically going to make you a more creative person and a better artist in that sense as well.
What inspired you to take just to combine? Honestly, it's a very basic question. What inspired you to come up with this? It's such a strange concept. You can draw a thing, take a picture, it becomes a game. That is not something where, often you see these ideas where it's like, if you follow this thread of logic, you end up at this product. I can't even imagine the thread of logic you were following that you ended up with this. Or I can, and it may or may not be a legal thread of logic. So How does this come together?
So it comes together really, this is kind of like the link between our minds, my husband and I. So when I have students that are doing drawings, they're like, oh, I wish this thing could move. And I'm like, oh, I wish it could too. And then they're like, oh, wait a minute, it can move because we have this amazing technology in our phones or in our tablets that we can manipulate and we can create a product that can take that information and assign information to it. So a lot of my students, they're like, I want to be in game design, but they don't know how to program or they don't know how to code. So when they're kind of starting at that point, they feel like that door is closed to them.
Right.
And then when you say, well, you can draw though, and you can use green and you know what colors are, then you can do this. Really, anybody can. So as soon as we're able to kind of break down that wall and that barrier, and that's really all there is kind of preventing people from creating games themselves, then it really does open up this entire new world. So it really is the meeting of the minds, you know.
Well, we've talked about it in the context of drawing, but you said it works with anything. You
Correct.
had brought this cake,
Yes.
and I'm sure everyone in our audience is looking at this cake going, are they going to eat the cake? Or is she going to throw it at Brian? What's the cake for? Why do we have a cake here?
Well, tomorrow's my birthday, but that's not the real reason.
Okay, well, happy birthday.
Thank you. So the real reason is that art is not just drawing. Art is really anything. So I actually spent quite a long time as a cake decorator. You also, as you mentioned, fabric and design, and really everything that is out there is designed by someone.
Right.
So the cake is here because this is actually a video game.
Okay.
So we have used different things like a gummy bears.
Now, if I hold this up, is it going to slide off?
I don't think so. We can go ahead
Hold
and
it up
give
a
it
little.
try. Okay.
So we can get a shot of that.
All right.
So we have a cake here.
Yeah.
It's literally a cake. It is not a fake cake. It is not anything like that. It's got gummy bears on it. It's got frosting on it. But I think what's key is it has green elements, red elements, blue elements, purple elements on a white background.
Correct, exactly. So anything that is set up that way will work as a video game. So on the phone here, you can see that I can make my gummy bear jump. Oh, I just fell off the cliff. And I can collect the blue elements and try to avoid red, because then I die.
Deadly cake.
Yes.
It might not be the next hot video game, but it certainly is a great demonstration of how the software works, how the game works, how the toy works. Maybe not a toy, I don't know what I would call it, but a educational artistic product.
We're calling it kind of like it's entering the phygital space, which is the idea of the physical and the digital worlds kind of coming together. So we're seeing this as kind of a new trend in kind of toys for kids.
Cool. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you so much.
It's
Really
great having
appreciate being
Doodlematic here. We love the product. We have a lot of fun with it. Really appreciate it. Stick around. We're going to have a lot more coverage from CES 2020. I'm Brian Stillman for BeTerrific. We'll be back.